At the beginning of the season, I visited a friend and he wanted to watch Witch Hat Atelier. At the time, I was incredibly hesitant to start another fantasy anime, because even though this year has been great for fantasy, I'm not sure when the next season is going to be when there's not a fantasy show I'm already watching. Frieren dominated the winter season. This season we had one of the best arcs of ReZero yet, and obviously Witch Hat. Next season, the GOAT, Mushoku Tensei, is coming back. And fall, we're finally getting more of Black Clover. And it's looking like 2027 has no plans of slowing down on the fantasy hype train. So even though I saw everybody's hype about Witch Hat, I wasn't necessarily the most excited to hop into another decades-long commitment, especially when a good portion of my anime consumption is already being consumed by fantasy. But everyone I was with wanted to give Witch Hat a try, and I heard good things, so I figured why not. For anyone who doesn't know, Witch Hat is a story about a young magic-obsessed girl named Coco that lives in a world where magic is only wielded by witches, and the secret to how they cast is incredibly tightly kept. Even though it's forbidden, Coco does secretly learn the secret to casting magic when she watches a witch passing through named Kifri. She then immediately accidentally creates a spell that petrifies her mother. Normally in this world, if this happens, the protocol is to erase their memory.
I am just a figment of your imagination.
But Coco wants to learn more about magic to hopefully someday save her mom. And Kifri thinks the incident could somehow be related to a fringe group of wizards called the Brimcaps that he's actively investigating. So he decides to break the rules and take her on as an apprentice. The rest of the season shows Coco befriending the other witches under Kifri's watch, while Kifri does his best to learn more about the Brimcaps. I really liked this show, and I actually do think the current hype is warranted. The show has a lot of heart, and it balances the lightheartedness with an enriching and deep story. It honestly feels a little like Frieren in that way. One of the tenets these witches live by is that spells are supposed to be cast not just to help people, but to actively make their lives better. What I think Witch Hat does that's hard to come by is making that premise actively thoughtful. I've watched plenty of anime where the goal is to make the world better, but it's usually drenched in idealism and heroics, which, don't get me wrong, can be awesome. But because they're essentially theory crafting spells, they have to be really cognizant of what their intent is. There's one scene where a witch named Orugio, who lives with Kifri and the girls, gives each of them a magical item that will help them sleep better. This happens at a moment where it's clear a lot of them are overworking and undersleeping, so it already comes across as thoughtful. But I thought the extra layer of knowing exactly what kind of diligent work went into creating a gift like that gave me a lot of insight to the culture of these witches. Because it isn't just Orugio. Each character is consistently using their magical ability and know-how to make each other's lives easier. Spending the time to not just show us how thoughtful, but how diligent these characters are, instantly made these heartwarming moments hit more like relatable, sincere moments between people who care about each other, which is incredibly hard to get across authentically in the first season of a show. Besides that, the magic system itself is intriguing and unique. Because all of the spells are drawn and people aren't allowed to see them casting spells, the show takes a lot of time explaining to us exactly how the spells are crafted, how they circumnavigate not being able to be seen, and how they can affect items to make them usable magic items. And because the magic system is rooted in drawing, you don't have to convince me that it's difficult, or why each character has their own strong investment in their personal craft. The whole magic system is based on reliably drawing perfect circles and adding modifying lines to them. I know how hard that shit is. Have you ever tried to draw a perfect circle in your life? The system is so concrete that people have been theory crafting their own spells they think would work in this world. My point is the world building is really solid and it's mostly based on concrete rules. Even though it feels like we only got a glimpse of the world in this season, they still managed to paint a vast picture of not just the rules of the universe, but also the status quo built by the ruling class of witches and how the characters we're following feel about and live in that status quo. The season ended in what I would call the most disturbing episode so far. It gave me a similar off-putting feeling that episode 4 of Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood did, and honestly, every time forbidden magic was used, I felt the gravity of what had been done. Obviously, the season ended in a bit of a cliffhanger, and honestly, the episode didn't even feel like a season finale. But even that's a choice I respect. I'd rather have the whole show feel like one project than have it cater to the seasonal anime format. My biggest problem with the anime so far is that we haven't seen enough of it. I think Witch Hat could become one of my favorite fantasy shows once we get into the world. But right now I need more time to sit with my thoughts on season 1. And I definitely think we need more show before I can rate it amongst Mushoku Tensei or even something newer like Frieren. Obviously from this video you can tell that I liked Witch Hat, and I'm glad that I added it to my ever-growing list of anime. If you're a fan of the more Frieren-esque modern fantasy feel, you're gonna really like Witch Hat. And I think we'll be fine as long as they don't make a season 2 about a giant turtle. Thanks for watching.